Welcome back. It's Kamsi here, or Abbas, anyone you want to call me. Today we're still going to look at working on coding problems, especially if you're preparing for interviews. LeetCode should be your best friend. So today we are going to look at a problem very similar to one of the ones I recently posted. For this one, you have to find the furthest point from the origin. So again, we are looking at a robot. A robot is moving this time left or right, and it also has dashes. So you have to find the longest distance or the farthest distance that this robot could move from the origin, and the origin is 0.0. So we are looking at it as if we are looking at the Cartesian plane. So we have just the horizontal axis, left or right, and a center point 0. So these are the examples. So assuming you have a string called moves, and it has L dash R L dash dash R. The furthest point, the furthest distance would be 3. So in this particular example, they assume that for all the dashes, you're going to substitute it for L, which is very logical. And they did, for this second example, they substituted all the dashes for, again, L, and they substituted all the dashes here for R. Now, I want you to think about this question, and you can pause it here. I'm going to tell you the steps that I did and how I then solved it. Okay, so moving forward, first of all, I took the first example, which was L dash R, L dash dash R. Now, let's assume that when you're moving on the horizontal axis, if you're moving left, it's going to be -1. If you're moving right, it's going to be positive, right? And if we are trying to see all the options that this could be, the possibilities, it could be LLRLLLR, blah, blah, blah. And this continues because there are so many possibilities or combinations. So the most logical way to approach this question is, first of all, to see how many, what's the frequency, how many times do we have L's, how many times do we have R's. The character with the highest number, we would then substitute this character for every place that we see the dashes. I hope that makes sense. So for example, in this scenario, we see that both the L's and the R's are equal. We have 2 L's, we have 2 R's. So in this case, we can choose any. I like to choose R because I just like working with positives. But in the example that they gave, they use L. It doesn't matter. If you use L, if you use R in this particular instance, it's going to give you 3 or -3. But your answer should be an absolute value, and an absolute value is a value without negatives. So it's going to be -1 plus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 5 minus 2, which is 3. Now that's the way I decided to approach it. And so to code this, I'm coding in Java. I had 2 for loops. This is again, this is a simple question. You could solve it in multiple ways. This is the way I decided to approach it. You have 2 for loops. The first for loop checks everything to see which of these characters between R or L, which one has more number of times it has been counted. How am I putting it? We have to check the frequencies of the R's compared to the frequencies of the L's, and whichever is higher, we're going to use that number and we're going to substitute it. So I had a counter for R because I like working with R. Now the first counter checks, it goes through the whole items or characters in the string move, and it checks at every position is there R. If there's R, it updates the counter. If there's no R, it reduces the counter. So basically, if this is L, the counter should reduce. So at the end of the day, we want to find out if the counter is greater than 0. Because if it's nothing, like the third example that we had, which was dash 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 dash, you could substitute anything here. You could substitute L's, you could substitute R's. For me, because there is nothing here, I would substitute R's. That is my own scenario. Okay, so if the counter is greater than or equal to 0, then we're gonna substitute the value of R. Now, because strings are immutable, we don't want to really change the actual string. We want to actually just count. So instead of replacing the actual string, we'll just be adding the counter for R in the place of that dashes. So where we see dash, we would kind of put R, but not actually changing the actual string. We are just changing it. We are just counting it as R. Okay. Now, if we have more L's, we will be subtracting. So we would have a subtracted number. Either way, if we have more L's and L's are more, and then we substitute the values of L's wherever we see dashes, we are going to have a negative number at the end. And regardless, when you absolute value it, it's going to give you the furthest distance. Yeah. So this is it. Let me know what you guys think. That when I run this, it gives me actually a very short compilation time. So it gives me 1 millisecond, 42 MB or 41, whatever you want to say. But this is relatively a very good solution. I mean, it takes more memory space, but the time complexity is good. It beats 100% of users. So I would say that's a good runtime. Again, you can change the solution to try to optimize the memory space. Yeah,